Jack wiped the sweat off his brow as he leaned on the fence, scanning the wide stretch of his ranch. The early morning sun burned through the thin clouds, casting long shadows across the dusty ground. His cattle grazed quietly in the distance, and the wind carried the familiar scent of dry grass and leather. Life here was simple, maybe too simple for some, but it suited Jack. He liked the quiet, the rhythm of chores, and the honest work that connected him to the land. That's when he noticed it. A flash of silver and blue caught in the corner of his eye. A vehicle, sleek and unlike anything Jack had seen on his planet before, was half buried in a muddy ditch near the edge of his property. He squinted. It looked expensive, smooth, and built for speed, not for getting stuck in a mud puddle. He frowned, wondering how anyone could get lost in this part of the desert. A small movement inside the vehicle caught his attention. An alien figure crouched by the controls, struggling with something. Jack's curiosity shifted to concern. He grabbed his hat, adjusted it firmly on his head, and started walking toward the ditch. As he got closer, he saw her clearly. A woman, tall and graceful, with smooth, pale skin tinged with a soft blue hue. Her hair shimmered with streaks of silver, and her eyes, wide with worry, followed every movement of her children who squirmed inside the vehicle. She looked powerful, regal even, but the way she clutched her 3 young ones told Jack that she was afraid. "Hey," Jack called out, raising a hand. "You need some help?" The woman froze and turned to him, her eyes narrowing. She studied him for a long moment. Jack could see the hesitation in her gaze, the pride battling the obvious need for assistance. I am stranded," she said, her voice calm but tense. The words were formal, not casual, as if she were used to commanding others rather than asking for help. "Can you move this?" Jack glanced at the vehicle. "Not with my hands," he said with a small smile. "But I can get you out of here into my ranch. You don't want to be stuck here when the storm rolls in tonight." The woman's eyes widened, disbelief flickering across her face. "Your ranch?" she repeated. "I am a member of the High Council of my world. I do not travel with humans," Jack shrugged. "You're stuck in the mud. Council or not, it's your call. You can stay here and wait for a fancy rescue that may never come, or you can get in my truck. Now." Her jaw tightened. She glanced at her children. One of them tugged at her sleeve, making a soft whining noise. They were scared, restless, and exhausted. She swallowed and nodded, her pride fighting her instincts but ultimately losing. "All right," she said finally. "We will go with you." Jack didn't wait. He walked around to the back of his old dusty truck, a beat-up vehicle that had seen more than its share of storms and rough terrain. Its engine rumbled to life with a reassuring growl. The woman hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward, lifting her children one by one and settling them into the truck bed. They looked small and fragile in contrast to the rugged human machine. Jack climbed in beside her, adjusting the seatbelt for the first time in years, and hit the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, bouncing over the rough path, mud splattering against its sides. The woman clutched the edge of the seat, her eyes darting around, taking in every detail of the landscape she had never known existed. The children squealed with a mix of fear and excitement. "Hold tight," Jack called over the engine's roar. "We'll be at the ranch soon." The journey was bumpy, and the wind carried dust that clung to their skin. But gradually the woman began to notice Jack's steady hand, his calm confidence, and the way he handled the truck as if it were an extension of himself. She said nothing, but her tension eased slightly. By the time they reached the ranch, the sun was lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the fences and open pastures. Jack pulled the truck to a stop in front of a modest wooden house, a barn to the side and the grazing cattle in the background. The woman's eyes widened. It was simple, almost rustic, but it radiated warmth, order, and life. "Welcome to my place," Jack said with a grin. "I hope you're hungry. I make a mean stew." The alien woman hesitated, glancing at her children who were now bouncing out of the truck, laughing and running toward the barn. She followed slowly, her steps cautious, her hands tight around the straps of her small bag. Inside, the house smelled of cooked meat, bread, and the faint aroma of hay. Jack moved with practiced ease, getting plates, cutting vegetables, and setting everything on a wooden table. The children clambered onto chairs, their laughter filling the room. The woman stood silently, watching, unsure how to interact with this strange human world. Jack noticed her discomfort. "It's all right," he said gently. "You don't have to understand everything. Just sit, eat, and rest." Finally, she allowed herself to sit, and Jack served her a plate. She hesitated, examining the food, and then took a bite. The flavors were simple but comforting. She looked at him, surprised by how normal it felt. After dinner, Jack led the woman and her children to a spare room. The children immediately collapsed onto the beds, exhausted, and soon fell asleep. The woman stood at the doorway, staring at the room, her expression a mixture of disbelief and gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly, almost a whisper. "I did not expect this," Jack smiled. "Sometimes life surprises you. You don't need wealth to find safety. You just need a place and someone who cares." She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time. Her eyes softened, seeing not just a human, but someone strong, kind, and steady, a protector. The night was quiet, broken only by the soft sounds of her children breathing and the distant lowing of the cattle. She sat by the window, watching the stars. Her mind wandered, reflecting on her fall from wealth and status, on the betrayals that had left her stranded. And yet, for the first time in a long while, she felt a strange sense of hope. Jack checked on the children once more before heading to his own bed. On his way back, he paused at the doorway to the woman's room. "Sleep well. Tomorrow we'll get you and your kids settled. You're safe here," he said simply. She nodded, still unsure how to fully trust this human, but the warmth of his words lingered. As she lay down, she realized that maybe safety, trust, and family could come in forms she had never imagined. And for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to breathe, letting go of some of the tension that had weighed her down. Outside, Jack's truck sat under the stars, battered but reliable. Inside, an alien woman and her children were beginning a journey they never expected, one that might teach them more about courage, resilience, and the human spirit than all the riches in the galaxy ever could. And for Jack, the quiet rancher, life was about to change in ways he could never have predicted. The morning sun poured through the windows, spilling warm light across the modest ranch house. The alien children stirred, yawning and stretching as they tumbled out of their makeshift beds. Mara, their mother, sat quietly on the edge of the bed, brushing her fingers along the soft sheets. She had slept more deeply than she remembered in months, the weight of fear and uncertainty easing slightly under the protection of this human rancher's home. Jack had been up for hours, already tending to the cattle. The lowing of the animals and the soft clinking of the harnesses filled the air. Mara watched him for a moment, noting how natural he seemed with the livestock, how comfortable he was in this environment. She had spent her life surrounded by technology, luxury, and calculated power. She had rarely touched soil, rarely felt the sun on her skin without shields or filters. Yet here life seemed simpler, more honest, and strangely inviting. The children ran ahead, laughing as they chased a few of the younger calves. Jack's laughter carried across the field. Mara hesitated for only a moment before following, her children's hands gripping hers tightly. Jack turned when he saw them approach. "Ready to help?" he called, a teasing grin on his face. Mara raised an eyebrow. "Help?" Jack nodded. "Yeah, we've got chores to do. Feeding, checking fences, making sure the water troughs are full. You'll see, it's not glamorous, but it keeps life moving." Mara glanced at her children, who were bouncing with excitement, and then at Jack. She wasn't sure what to expect, but the energy of the ranch, the simplicity of routine, and the safety of the human beside her gave her courage. "All right," she said finally, letting herself be led into the rhythm of ranch life. At first, Mara struggled. Her delicate hands, unused to rough work, fumbled with the tools and animals. She dropped a bucket of water, and one of the calves startled, causing a cascade of small noises and confusion. Jack approached quietly, showing her the correct way to lift and pour, his voice calm and patient. "Easy now. Animals can feel tension. Relax, and they'll follow your lead." She followed his instructions carefully. Slowly, the routine began to make sense, and Mara realized that there was a certain satisfaction in the work. The immediate reward of a task done correctly, the trust the animals placed in her, and the warmth of sunlight and wind that no controlled chamber could ever replicate. The children were fearless, climbing into the hayloft, chasing chickens, and learning the names of the animals. Mara laughed, something she hadn't done freely in months, perhaps years. She noticed how Jack's eyes softened as he watched her and the children. He was strong, capable, but not boastful. His pride was quiet, rooted in knowledge, experience, and care, not in wealth or status. Their morning routine was interrupted by a sudden rumble overhead. Mara looked up to see sleek, unfamiliar ships descending toward the ranch. Her heart sank. She recognized the insignia instantly. Her former associates had found her. They had come not to negotiate but to reclaim her and her children by force. Panic prickled at the edges of her mind, but Jack remained calm, his eyes narrowing at the ships. "They're after you," Mara whispered. "They'll take my children. Jack placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "Not today. Not while we're here." He turned to the children, who looked between him and their mother with wide eyes. "Stay close to her. I'll handle this." The ships landed awkwardly on the uneven terrain, and figures emerged, their movements precise and aggressive. Mara's former advisors were armed, confident, and used to obedience. But Jack had something they did not: intimate knowledge of the land, the ability to improvise, and courage that refused to yield. Using a combination of clever diversions and the natural terrain, Jack led the intruders into traps and dead ends. He drove his old truck alongside the intruders' vehicles, cutting off escape routes, kicking up dust and confusion. The children cheered from the sidelines, laughing as they watched the human outmaneuver the technologically superior forces. Mara, astonished, saw a side of humans she had underestimated: their resourcefulness, endurance, and bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. Hours passed in tense maneuvering, and finally the intruders realized they were outmatched. They retreated, frustrated and humiliated, leaving Mara and her children safe. Mara collapsed onto the ground, breathing heavily, the adrenaline slowly leaving her system. She looked at Jack, gratitude and awe in her eyes. I thought they would take everything," she admitted softly. Jack shrugged, brushing dust from his hands. "Sometimes people forget that courage isn't about weapons or wealth. It's about standing your ground and protecting the people who matter." The alien woman felt a new understanding settle over her. She had spent her life in palaces and councils, surrounded by opulence, manipulation, and rules designed to control. And yet she had never experienced loyalty, courage, or care like this. Not in all her wealth and influence had she known such a simple, profound strength. Over the next few days, Mara and her children fully adapted to ranch life. They learned to feed the animals, mend fences, and even ride alongside Jack as he guided the cattle. Laughter became common, and the children's voices rang through the fields, calling to one another, asking questions, and sharing discoveries. Mara found herself marveling at how life could be so rich without credits, palaces, or status. Jack taught them not only practical skills but the philosophy of patience, persistence, and respect for life. Mara listened, sometimes skeptical, sometimes fascinated. She realized that these lessons were more valuable than any amount of wealth, lessons that her children could carry forward, and that could make them stronger than any political power or luxury ever could. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the ranch, Mara stood by the fence watching the children play in the dust. Jack joined her quietly, leaning against the wood. They were silent for a moment, listening to the wind and the distant calls of the cattle. "You've given us more than safety," Mara said finally, her voice soft. "You've given us hope and maybe a chance to belong somewhere again." Jack smiled, tipping his hat. "Hope is a hard thing to hold on to sometimes, but it's stronger than anything money can buy. You and your kids, you belong here if you want to." Mara looked at him, understanding the weight of the offer. It was more than shelter. It was trust, acceptance, and the chance to rebuild a life. She realized she had underestimated humans, not just in skill but in heart. The children ran to them, tugging at their hands, ready for the evening chores and stories by the fire. Mara followed, feeling warmth she hadn't known in years. Around the fire, Jack shared stories of his youth, his mistakes, and his triumphs. The children laughed, asked questions, and listened with rapt attention. Mara joined in, sharing tales of her home planet, carefully omitting the parts that would shame her. Night fell, and the stars above twinkled in the clear sky. Mara tucked her children into bed, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't experienced since her life fell apart. She turned to Jack, who stood by the doorway watching quietly. I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. Jack shook his head. "No thanks needed. Just take care of your kids and keep living. That's enough for me." Mara smiled, a real smile this time, free from fear or hesitation. She realized that she had found something far more valuable than the wealth she had lost: safety, family, and a human who had shown her the meaning of courage, loyalty, and kindness. In the quiet ranch house, the children asleep and the fire crackling softly, Mara felt something she had long forgotten: hope. And in the distance, under the endless stars, she knew that the humble human who had taken them in had changed their lives forever. Jack's ranch, simple and unassuming, had become more than a place to stay. It had become home. And Mara, the formerly wealthy alien mother of 3, understood that sometimes the greatest riches were the ones you couldn't buy. As she drifted off to sleep, she whispered softly to herself, "Maybe this is where we belong." And for the first time in a long time, she truly believed it.